We are joined with a woman of many different strengths, a mother, a wife, an entrepreneur, and a mental health specialist. In more than 5+ years, she has cultivated her knowledge to become an LPC. And when the opportunity arose, bought her own practice alongside her husband, Jonathan Clayton. Today, we are greeted by the owner of Towne Counseling, Sarah Clayton. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
It means a lot that you said yes. I really appreciate being able to come here and talk with you. We do have a personal relationship, as you were my therapist before, but now we are here together as fellow business owners, and I couldn't be prouder. I usually start the show asking, what did you want to be when you were a young woman?
Well, I was going to be a veterinarian up through freshman year of college. And you can see how that turned out.
Yeah. But now that you've mastered your craft, and now that you have your practice, now that you have went to school for something completely different, what life advice or what observations would you tell that young woman?
I wish I didn't take life so seriously, especially in high school. I was so focused on doing everything right and getting on that right track, and then it just kind of like blew up anyways. Or I was trying so hard to find like the right person, and I feel like that was a very lofty goal for high school. And I wish I had just taken myself like a little less seriously and had more fun and just enjoyed those moments.
Was there ever a bout of imposter syndrome when you were trying to be a veterinarian, and then again when you were trying to become a therapist?
Not so much with being a veterinarian. I found out pretty quick in college that was not going to be my path. With counseling, I think there was, and sometimes there still is, depending on who I'm working with. There's a lot of just questioning, am I doing this right? Or am I giving like the best advice for this person and their needs? Or could someone be doing this better? And I try to really challenge myself to not compare and just trust myself and my instincts in those moments.
With the story of you becoming an entrepreneur, what was the story of how you stepped into it, combining science and medicine? How did you know that you were going to move into this?
So into counseling or into being a business owner?
Into being a business owner.
Okay. Well, we were just very fortunate and we feel very blessed. It kind of fell into our laps. My husband was working here as a resident, and as he was getting ready to get his license, and I was coming out of a maternity leave and getting ready to get a job at this practice as well, the business owners were actually stepping away. And we were just very fortunate to have the means and accessibility to buy the practice. And it was something we had planned on doing, and we thought it was going to be like 10 or 15 years out. And then we were just newly licensed with a practice.
How do you have the bandwidth to do both?
I really don't. Very honestly, I don't. We just have so much support. We feel very privileged. We have a great daycare. My in-laws have helped us out with childcare just immensely. We have my dad, who's a small business owner. My father-in-law was a vice president of a company, so we leaned so much on their knowledge and experience too. It really was just built on the strong foundation we had, and we try really hard not to take that for granted. We couldn't do it without them.
I am also the son of some entrepreneurs who they tried their best to provide food on the table. My mom never really took a W-2. She was always like getting after it with commission sales, etc. When you decided to buy the business, was there a point to where you're like, oh, like I'm following in the footsteps of my parents?
Absolutely. I think especially for me, because I had seen how hard my dad had worked and how much time and effort he had put into his own business, it was something that I initially wasn't excited about, It wasn't something that I had considered. I really liked working with students in schools and being behavior support, and I had seen myself more in that role. But when the opportunity presented itself, really felt more confident, especially with just all the support and everyone just saying, like, you can do this. And it's turned out to be probably the best decision we could make for our family.
In the time that you've started the business, how have you guys overcome failures and obstacles?
So my immediate thought was together. It's been really challenging because as we were growing the business, we're also growing our family, and there's a push and pull between both. And so we've really just relied on each other and not like pick at each other. I feel like a lot of couples do that. So we've really tried to be on the same team. We reach out for more support and advice, and really just try to meet each other where we're at and help each other in whatever areas we can.
How important is meeting in the middle? Because you're your own person, mm-hmm. Jonathan's his own person. How do you guys do that together? Especially since you both are in the field of psychology, mm-hmm. you know.
So it's like 100% important. You just have to do that. It's very interesting, but we're both counselors, because when we have conversations, we're not just talking about the topic, we're also talking about how we're talking about it. So there's always at least 2 layers to conversations of what did we talk about and did we do well by the other partner and how we addressed it. I think meeting in the middle is just like probably the most important thing. It allows us to hear each other, to see each other's perspectives, and to learn from each other so that we can form a more shared vision.
I've always been personally curious. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But which famous psychologist do you model your personal practice after? I would assume it's probably not Sigmund Freud.
No, it's not Freud. That's a really good question. I tend to do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. Sometimes I'll pull in some Gestalt. So a lot of those founders. But I think more importantly, probably some of our supervisors we had through our program, like Dr. Foster or Rochelle or Dr. Sheffield, some of the ones that had really hands-on feedback on how we were going through our programs and training, I think were really influential for me.
I think it was Bandura. Mm-hmm. Would you ever raise or maybe not you wouldn't, but I remember there was a famous psychologist who raised his kids in a box, in a warm box. What are your thoughts on that as a psychologist, as somebody who's in the field of mental health yourself?
No. No? Yeah. We try really hard not to be just put them in a box. No, it's really important for us that we have that reciprocal relationship with our kids, and we can be firm when we need to be firm, but we can be loving and let them explore and experience new things too, and be supportive in those areas.
Yeah. A lot of your specialties within the mental health field are actually with children, mm-hmm. As we have spoke about, as is on your how do you say it? Would it be a medical portfolio, or a psychological portfolio?
Like a profile. Or
yeah,
something?
Like a professional profile. What are the myths that you could dispel when raising children?
That there is one right way to do it. I feel like the more I learn about, especially other cultures, there's so much we can learn from other people groups, and there's not one just right way. I think parents try to find the magic approach or the magic key, and a lot of it's just shaping based on you and your experiences, and also your kid and the differences between your kids. We have very different kids and with very different personalities, and they take way different approaches. And so there's not one right thing you can do. I try to remind myself, kids in other countries, they're going to be outside when it's colder. So I can definitely take my kids out when it's 40s or even 30s, and they'll be okay. Just I don't have to limit myself into like maybe like one definition of what's good or right. Especially when I'm considering like how are other kids being raised across the world, and what are they experiencing, and how can that allow me to open up my experiences for my kids.
Yeah. It reminds me because I'm a first generation American, so my parents are Filipino. Getting beat would definitely be not out of the question. But I'm actually always thankful for the experiences that my ancestors could bestow upon me. It just means that I can move forward, hopefully in the next generation, teaching my kids or whether it be like my nephews and nieces, without perhaps the use of force. When it comes to like your personal parenting style, how have you like combined your field of science and medicine to like being a parent?
So I definitely try to give my kids room to like experience their emotions. I try to listen to their point of view, listen to where they were coming from. So I don't want to just impose like this is what you can or can't do. There's a lot of, well, why did you do that? What were you actually thinking in the best possible way? And trying to get to like that behind the mask of like what's going on. You're upset, but like let's get to the root of this. And I feel like that can be different from a lot of other parents in some ways, where they just want their kids to listen. And usually there's some like good reason, but other times, and my husband's much better at discerning this, sometimes they're just kids and they're just not going to listen, or they want to get their way or stay up late, and you just got to be like, no, it's bedtime. And he's much better at that than I am, where I'm like, okay, well, what do you need? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Let's go to the bathroom. He's like, they don't. They just want to get out of
They just want your attention.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
I had a thought of when it comes to like different cultures, as we talked about. How is like the power dynamic between like what you see in America versus what you see like between people who are like first generation Americans, like who come from a different culture? Like, what are like common things that you notice?
Like in parenting specifically?
Yeah, yeah.
That's actually pretty hard for me to answer. I haven't worked with a lot of people from either first generation or from other countries specifically on parenting. So I don't really have a good baseline. I know some like from media. I feel like here there is a tendency that like more like American or I guess like cultural approaches based on like maybe Caucasians, that seems to be like the right way to do it. And I think there's a lot of room to grow where we can learn from other cultures, especially just like approaches to different things. I think a good example would be just like that individualistic approach versus like communal approach. And I think that's something that we could, like my culture could learn a lot from, of like being like aware of other people and being considerate of them without going like too far into losing yourself either.
Yeah. Speaking of the self, can I ask a personal question? Mm-hmm. How do you heal your inner child?
Probably by doodling. If I can do anything like artsy or crafty, and that's usually really helpful with the kids. If I can just like get on their level and do the things with them and be in the moment with them, that usually really helps my inner child. Especially if I can like put down the phone. And I hope a lot of parents like can hear that, like put down the phone and just like be in the moment with your kid. Do the Play-Doh, do the painting, even if it's messy. The more I do that, the more like I can feel like in tune with them and just feel like my own inner child healing too.
This might be low-key embarrassing. Actually, high-key embarrassing since we're on camera. But what are they called? I think they're like the Asian dolls. They're like plushies. Yeah, I'll see like Appa toys like from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'll just like start like not like screaming, but I'll be like, "Oh, that's so cute." I feel like a lot of men neglect that part of themselves. Like I try to be like I strive for like masculinity, I strive for like the strength, but I also feel like a lot of guys they neglect their mental health. What advice would you give generally to men who struggle with asking for help?
That's a really good question. We've talked a lot about this, especially as I'm working with like 10-year-old boys.
Yeah.
Just find someone to talk to. A friend, like an older figure that you look up to, just someone that can tell you that your feelings are like experienced by others, they're valid, and to help steer you in that right way to channel those emotions.
Do you have daughters or sons?
I have 2 daughters and 1 son.
Do you like as a mom, do you feel like well, I would say like so my mom, she'll kind of complain that like oh no, I have 3 guys. And so she feels like her voice isn't heard. I mean, he does have a dad, so it wouldn't really matter that he would feel like his voice wouldn't be heard. But when your son would turn to you, how would you explain him asking for help? That it's okay to like cry. It's okay to be masculine and gentle at the same time.
So this one's hard because he's still really little. He's going to be 1 soon. But I hope I can do it in a similar way that I've been doing it with my daughters, just validating their emotions, giving them that space to feel, and just telling them, like, it's okay. And I know I'm already anticipating that I'm going to have to maybe walk that back or explain to him, like, you know, in some context, other people might tell you it's not okay to cry or you might get made fun of. So I think it's just going to be kind of exploring with him, like, what is acceptable, especially for boys more so than girls, because I feel like girls can cry and it's okay. But hopefully, like, by the time my son gets older, there's going to be more of a shift to allow boys to have their feelings and be open about them too.
This was in the first episode with Coach Adam. Plug to Shift Combat Systems. Thank you so much for being the first episode. I was reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. I know that's like poster child, like, oh my gosh, like everybody reads it. But he talks about how we don't rise to the level of our ambitions. We fall to the level of our systems. And I wanted your take on it. How have you developed a system to where you're balancing a lot? So like, how have you developed a complex system that you're able to like utilize efficiently?
So it's still a work in progress. That's probably like the best way to put it. Like, it's still evolving and growing as things keep changing. I feel like, especially these past few years, has just been constant change. With the business developing, with the kids hitting new milestones and more kids coming. It's just, there's always constant change. So that balance has always been like moving. Like if someone's standing up on like one leg, they might not be standing still. Like I wouldn't be standing still. So there's always that like pull and push with everything else. So a lot of our systems is based on just setting us up for, okay, who can watch the kids when, who do we want to be working with? How can we align our schedules around like childcare needs and the people we're trying to reach? I love working with kids, but that conflicts a lot with our evening routine at home. So it's, okay, how do we balance like what our kids need versus what other families need, and setting up our systems around, I guess, just what our needs are. And luckily right now we've been able to do that really well with our family.
I think we had the conversation about how a relationship is never truly 50-50. It's like 100-100, sometimes like 60-40 or like 2020. Like, what are acts of love that you give your husband when you guys are like at like rock bottom? You guys are like, I have no energy. I don't want to do this. Let me just watch a show.
That one's really cute. So, we have a very protected like couple hours in the evening that we don't do anything, except watching, like you said, like watching our shows, playing video games, and I try really hard to turn off work brain, and that's so much harder for me than it is for him. Could probably talk about work all the time or talk about something all the time. So I try really hard to just like be focused and in the moment and just rest. And then if he needs something, I will usually be the one to get off the couch to get it, just to show that like act of love for him. Or like in the mornings, I'll try to be the one to like gets up with the kids and gets like everything going so he can have just some space in the morning to get ready. My schedule is a little bit more flexible than his, and it's a little bit more home based, where I do the lion's share at the home and he does the lion's share at the office. So we try to find different ways to like balance each other in that way. Like he might give me some mornings to sleep in, or he does like all the grocery shopping, which is fantastic, and make sure the cars and appointments are taken care of. So yeah.
How do you avoid burnout personally? Balancing all this.
I want to say it can be unavoidable at times. I think it's just being really open with each other of like where we're at and what we need. I try really hard to make sure that in like everything there's like a little moment for me. So if it's like, you know what, the kids can take like an extra 10 minutes watching the TV so I can drink a cup of coffee by myself, like moment for me there, that's a win. That's like a little charge in my battery. If it's, you know, like finding those little ways to like bend where it's like I could do the dishes right now, but I'm going to allow myself to just like sit because I know the kids are going to get up from their nap soon and it's going to be like busy again. And like some of those things can be put off for a little bit so that I can have those like moments to myself to just like recharge and reset. And that kind of keeps me from avoiding burnout.
What is your place of peace? Or where is it?
There's like no such thing as peace in our house. It could be like on the couch and like those evening times where we're like cuddling and watching our shows and the kids are quiet and asleep. That's really nice. But I also just like going out and doing something with like all of them, which is like not peaceful, but it's also recharging in a different way where you get to watch them experience things for the first time or learn about something new. And we're spending time with family is really important. We do that on the weekends also.
I forget, are you an extrovert or an introvert? In the sense of like how you recharge your batteries?
I think I might be more of like an extrovert. I'm definitely more extroverted than my husband. He's much more introverted. I really enjoy being around like friends and family. Sometimes I can get burnt out depending on like just how much like I'm missing out on doing at home. But yeah, I think I really enjoy being around people. And at the end of the day, I'm like reflecting on like who I've seen throughout the day and what we discussed and like where we can go. So I feel like I always keep people on my mind in that sense.
Yeah. Have on a side note, have like friends ever been like, I need help, Sarah? Like, please talk to me. Like, does that happen often?
Most of my friends are counselors. So we know like the boundary around we can't give like advice to friends or family, or we can't like treat them as a counseling client. So a lot of my friends know that, but we do try to like rely on each other for like support or encouragement. I get a lot of it from my family, where I have to be like, they would be really, it'd be helpful for them to talk about it. Where people will be like, what about my friend? And like, they should talk to someone. Don't take my advice. I can't give it to you.
With your friends, how do you guys have, I mean, especially since you guys are all counselors, like, you guys aren't counselors, therapists 24/7. What are activities that you guys would do together?
So right now a lot of it's kid focused. So it's like getting the kids together to play so that we can just like hang out.
Oh God, thank God.
Right, exactly. They're so like all the kids when they're playing together, it's great. A lot of our friends who are counselors also move to different cities, so we try to do like visits back and forth. We have friends in Charlottesville, so we do like apple picking with them. Some of our friends we try to go like out to dinner when we can arrange childcare on our end and just like go have like dinner and just talk. Usually about counselor stuff, but it's still nice.
Have you guys like ever considered like trying to do like a new hobby? Like, we're gonna go rock climbing with the kids, or like we're gonna do art with the kids, or is that what it looks like? Where like you guys are doing new activities with your kids?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that it kind of comes down to like a lot of stuff we like to do. We'll be like, maybe the kids will like to do this too. So we've already done like a lot of like painting, and we do like Mentos and Coke experiments with them to do volcanoes and stuff. And we try to do like really creative, like making robots out of like just stuff around the house, like boxes and like whatever they can get their hands on. So we try to do things like that, or take them places that we like to go. They're still really little, so we have 4, 3, and our youngest one's almost 1. So we can get away with doing like pretty minimal stuff with like maximum excitement right now. So it's like we can just take them to a new park, and it's pretty low key for us, but really high entertainment for them, which is great.
Don't flame me for this. It's just something I read on Google. But do you believe in like the grandmother effect, where like as you get older and as you are more focused on family, that you flock to other women and other men, where they are in the family element, like they're a father, they're a mother, they're a grandfather, they're a grandmother. Yeah, I don't want to make it seem like I butcher that. You know, like you're the mental health professional.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think with where our family is at in our stage of life with like young kids, it's definitely like easier to connect with other people who have young kids. There's a lot we share in common. There's a lot we can like relate to about each other. And I noticed that pretty quickly with like friends or couples that don't have young kids, where like they're like, oh, we can just drop by. And we're like, you cannot just drop by. We have nap time to consider. We've got feeding schedules. So yeah, I feel like there is that, like, people like tend to group together based on the similarities. We also try to keep like have friends that like don't have young kids or in other stages of life, just to like kind of balance us out, give us some more perspective. And I think that can be really healthy too, and really helpful, where other parents can kind of just like keep you in like, this is where you're at, and it's nice to branch out and see other things too.
Do you feel like you flake on a lot of single friends because of your kids? Like, they're like, hey, like, we should go out for a drink, or hey, we should go get a bite to eat. Obviously, like, they take priority, but do you feel like you do that more often than not?
So we try not to like flake. We make a commitment, we try to stick to it, but we actually like, we don't like seek out those opportunities, because usually by the time we like get home and everything's settled, it's like we just don't want to do anything. So it really does take a lot to try to like coordinate like who's gonna watch the kids, who's up for that. Like if my husband's going to visit a friend up in Richmond, then it's okay, well, I've got the kids that night. And so it can just be a lot to try to make some of those things happen. So we really appreciate when like friends are really flexible with us, or they're like, why don't I come over to your house and we just hang out in the backyard so your kids can run around. But yeah, we actually don't have very many like single friends. Yeah.
Part grown up, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of making things happen, where can people find you?
So we are at Newtown Counseling Center. We have our website, newtowncc.com. Yeah, and that's pretty much like the best way to learn more about us. We've got one of our students is returning in the fall, so we'll have like 10 like either licensed professionals or students or residents that can help people and hopefully like give them some like feedback or just provide them a place to listen and help them out.
With being a business owner, what are some of the things that you've encountered in the city of Williamsburg specifically? Because this is generally an area that is, would higher gentrification be the right word?
I'm not sure where you're going with the question, so I can't answer that.
But like as a business owner, because you guys are like younger entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
is there a pressure to feel like you have to deliver the same like? I'm trying to like phrase it in like a respectful way. Like, do you feel like you have to be the sharpest tool compared to like every other mental health practice because you guys are younger? Like, is there that pressure?
I don't think so. I think we are trying to still like build and grow and get things like just sharpened. So like there is that level of comparison where we look at some of the like the bigger, larger practices and we're like, what can we do a little bit differently to try to match where they're at, or what are we trying to embrace like for ourselves? What kind of like, how can we carve out our little section in this business world and just be us? So we try not to put too much pressure on ourselves. In some ways, it's kind of helpful to be younger. I think a lot of people, we don't actually like actively say like we're the business owners, so I feel like people don't like walk in with that assumption. And a lot of people seek us out because we're younger and we work with kids, so they're like, hopefully you can relate to my kids better. So sometimes it's been like to our advantage too.
Dr. Stephen Covey from he wrote the book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I believe. How do you guys sharpen the saw or sharpen the axe, I believe?
I think we really try to like bounce like ideas off of each other, really think through them. I'm like an idea generator and my husband is really good at knowing like which ones could work or how we can make them better, or which ones like are just like kind of off the cuff and like out in left field. I think it's just really that like sharing with each other like our vision and what's gonna get us there, and like not being afraid of that feedback of like, no, I don't see it that same way, and just trying to really build that together, and holding each other accountable too.
What advice would you have for young entrepreneurs, whether it be like mental health professionals, or any entrepreneur really? What advice would you have, even if it would be like the cliche?
Don't go it alone. It like I don't think we could do this without anyone else. Like we needed so much support in different ways, and I couldn't imagine doing this without everyone else behind us. I think just knowing like, where are the limits and where's like the safe limit of you can stay and where can you like push, and like what like understanding like to push you kind of have to sacrifice and it comes from somewhere, and just having like that wisdom and discernment of like, okay, when can I leap and when can I not leap, and I think having those skills pretty early on is helpful too. We got a lot of that from like my father-in-law especially.
Speaking of sacrifice, what did you have to sacrifice in order to make all of this successful?
So I was talking about some of these questions with my husband, and he helped me frame the answer to this pretty well. I try to like hold myself to high expectations. I feel like at the start of the day, I have a like huge to-do list, and at first I would get so defeated or discouraged that I wasn't meeting all those expectations. And so I think it's just sacrificing like, the expectations you hold for yourself, like you're not going to be able to meet them all. And that's okay. Especially when you're juggling like kids and work. There's so many things that can just like come up or like change the flow of the day. So it's good to be open and be able to drop those expectations. So I've definitely learned to be a lot kinder and gentler to myself for not checking off everything, and to really focusing those expectations on like what's the most important today.
For Newtown counseling, what comes next for you guys? Are you guys like planning to expand? Are you guys planning to just be the best Newtown counseling in Williamsburg?
That's a good question. We've thought about a lot of possibilities. Our office space is kind of getting a little cozy, so we've talked about maybe getting a bigger office. We've talked about doing like videos that post on our website, or seminars, or just starting to like print out some of our materials just to give more people the opportunity to access some mental health care that is really hard to find right now. So we have a lot of ideas. We're just trying to work on that bandwidth of like how much, and that sacrifice, how much can we like peel back in other areas to bring those other things to fruition.
Can I ask to share for you to share one of those ideas?
So one of them would be like going on and doing YouTube videos. It's just been something, it was a suggestion by a client that's just kind of lingered on my brain now for over a month. And, if we can try to navigate that process and figure out how to do it and what we need to for it to work, who knows, maybe we can just start it and see how it goes. But that would be really cool to be able to bring more information to more people, especially because right now it's so hard to find counselors.
Would Newtown counseling, in your mind, ever have like a better help, or would the YouTube be that kind of equivalent?
I guess for the YouTube it would just be to give people more like resources generally, and just more information, especially like how to find a counselor, what to look for, why people go to counseling, more general, instead of like more specific feedback.
For businesses, and don't have to answer this again if you don't want to, do you feel like most corporate American companies, they should mandate mental health?
I think so. Yeah, I think there's so much tied to like our mental health and work performance. It seems kind of mind-boggling that that's not given more importance, especially like since going through COVID, like we saw how important that was. And so, yeah, I think especially in like healthcare, there's a really big stigma against it, especially with doctors of, is this going to be seen as hurtful for their performance, or hurtful against their reputation? And they really need to be lifted up, because there's just so much burnout in that field, especially we're losing doctors. And I think it should be like less stigmatized and just held like a little bit with more importance.
There was actually a study done on not even American citizens. They were Japanese like corporate workers. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think there's an anime about it. I think it's called Zom 100.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We're watching that now.
So, like, I think the study was done was like, overtime is like 110 hours. Mm. It's like working week hours. What advice would you give to people who are in that situation? Would you just tell them to quit? Like, bro, you need to leave.
Oh, man. That's so hard, because I know some people, like, they just have to be there. Like, maybe there's, like, financial constraints, so it's so hard. It'd be really easy to just be like, just leave. But I don't know their situations. I don't know what other opportunities they could have. But, if enough people did, like, refuse or stay, like, left or try to find something else more viable, maybe that would send a message, because it seems more like a systems issue where it's like going to have to come from like the top almost, but those like bigger changes. But if there's people that can leave, that can send those messages of, I'm not going to do this anymore, then maybe if enough of them could help like support that movement. But I know not everyone can either.
As a business owner yourself, how do you find the right people to hire?
That's a really good question, because we've recently like been interviewing people. I think a lot of it is just sharing like our vision and what we're working towards and seeing how well people line up with that. Newtown Counseling Center kind of focuses on like anxiety, depression, neurodiverse populations. We do like life transitions, stuff like that, some grief work. And so we're pretty like limited or focused in those areas, and all of our clinicians have like advanced training or certifications in like specifically those areas. So we're really trying to find clinicians that want to, instead of being good in a lot of other areas, they want to be great in fewer areas, because there are just so many areas you could specialize in this field, and we just try to find clinicians that really want to be great in the areas that we focus in already.
Have you ever had to fire anybody yet?
No.
If it came to that point, how would you handle it?
So my cop-out would be I would not be the one handling it. My husband would. He does a lot more of that. But I think for my end, it would just be like talking with him at home. So much of the conversations and how because he does a lot more like interviewing, and he's just more available. But we have so many conversations about like what are our impressions of people, how do we see them like growing with us, fitting in, how can we help them grow. So I think it would really we would be really considering like, do we have to fire this person? Are there ways that we can support them? And it would just be that balance of like, how can we do this in the best way possible for like not only them, but if they see clients, like helping support their clients through that too.
For corporate America, I think this will probably be like one of my last bouts of corporate America. What faults do you truly see in like our system as a therapist? Like for the people that you talk to, what is like the dark side of their burnout, or like the dark side of American burnout in general?
I think it goes to like everything we're seeing today. There's like people don't have access to the healthcare they need. And can be discouraging when people come in and they think their plan covers certain things or more than they think it should. And we have to explain like, this is how your plan's actually working. So I think just healthcare coverage, and then there's so much importance on like generating revenue or like income for companies, and I guess that would be pressured by more like investors or like stockholders. But there's so much pressure on that end, and everything seems to be going in that direction, and there's not really anything going towards workers to reward them for their work or like give them time off to recoup. And there's other countries that are moving to shorter work weeks where they work like I think 32 hours, but they're getting paid the 40-hour work week, but they're more efficient because they have those days off to like maybe one day to like clean the house and one day to go to appointments and a day to rest. And there's a lot more balance there that allows people to just live. They're not working to work, they can work to live.
What is your life advice on living well, since we're on the subject of living?
It's so stereotypical, but trying to just be in the moment. Trying to like take each day as it is and just be like, how can I enjoy this or make this the best I can? Like even if it's like rainy day with the kids, where I got this off of like Pinterest or Google, like we put yarn in like the hallway, like lasers, and they have to crawl across the lasers and like, and not just like having them do it, but me doing it with them. So it's Just kind of like being present and just trying not to take things for granted, and just being like, yeah, in the moment with everything.
Well, I try to introduce a speed round.
Okay.
And one of the questions I want to ask is, what is your favorite anime?
So your assistant just asked us. It was Your Lie in April for a really long time, but then Demon Slayer came out, and then so that's really good. We also watched Hell's Paradise, and that's really, really good. It's really hard to pick just a favorite. But I think like the studio behind like Demon Slayer and Hell's Paradise is probably like my favorite producer.
Okay. What would you watch or would you watch or read like other maybe not foreign, like Chinese or Korean stuff? Because like lookism, I feel like is something that you would enjoy.
Oh, I have not heard of that. We do watch a lot of K-dramas. Some of the other shows, either animated or just dramas. Sometimes we can pick up that they're from other countries too, and we really enjoy those, especially K-dramas. We got really into K-dramas recently.
Are you a fan of like Korean food?
We are. We've been trying to like, as we're watching some of the shows, we're noticing a lot of the food, especially in like the food animes. So we've gotten like some cookbooks, or we're looking up recipes or watching YouTubers, and we're trying to make some of the food at home too. So that's been really fun.
What's your favorite?
So it's not like an animation, but we watch a lot of Uncle Roger. So we really took his like fried rice recipe to heart. So we've like really like done well with fried rice just based on like of his feedback. Like we really try to hone that in. I'm trying to think. We've done so much. We've done a lot with tofu, and that's been really cool. Yeah, I think the fried rice has to be like the main thing, because we've gotten like really, really good at homemade fried rice. I'm trying to think if there's any noodle dishes, because we've tried some of those too, but nothing's coming to my mind immediately.
Uncle Roger, if you're watching, thanks for the plug. Thanks for teaching everybody to make fried rice. Are you a car person?
A car person?
Yeah.
By necessity. Like,
Awesome.
I have to have a car. I sometimes like half jokingly say we should move to like the Netherlands so we don't
have to have a car.
We don't have to have a car. There's so much anxiety around driving.
Yeah, I really did wish America had better public transportation. Like Japanese, Koreans, a lot of people in Europe, they can just take the train.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I want to take a train.
Me too.
I've actually never ridden on a train.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to try.
Yeah, and a lot of the shows, that's one thing I always point out to my husband, like everyone's walking. Or if we watch like food shows and like they're in Europe, I'm like, everyone's walking. Like, it's so it's so crazy to me.
Yeah. What is your favorite kid show since you're a mom? Is it Cocomelon?
No, it's Bluey. Yeah. I really like Bluey.
Have you ever seen We Bare Bears?
I don't think so.
Do you let your kids watch like any kid show, or like does it need to be like specific to like growth?
So we have like junk food shows that they can watch, and that's mostly like YouTube shows. So we try to keep it in like kid friendly vein. If like they're with us, we try to veer on the more like wholesome, educational. They're gonna like learn something out of this, but you know, sometimes there's like one that's like karate sheep, and it's just like sheep doing karate, and we're like, okay, like you can have some of this. We know what it's like to enjoy these things too.
I enjoy those shows. Yeah, We Bare Bears is like, I think I saw an episode where like they're polar bears. Or wait, no, I think like one's a panda, one's a polar bear. Like they're just bears. And like they're like playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And so it probably has like no educational value, but it's entertaining.
Yeah.
Would you let them watch SpongeBob? Is that controversial to ask?
Maybe when they're older. There's already been some interest in SpongeBob when they see him. And we've tried to like watch some of the episodes, and then we're like, just a little bit later.
Well, unfortunately, we've reached the closing time for some closing thoughts. Thank you for participating in the speed round. I don't get to do it every single time, just like for sake of time. Like some people are, they like really hone in on a point, and they're like they go on about it, which I mean I love. The whole point of the podcast is like the authentic conversations, long form content. But I do like doing a speed round because like the nature of the podcast is already so serious. So thank you for participating in the speed round.
Absolutely.
For the last question I had is, what is general life advice that you'd give?
Yeah. Don't take it so seriously. Like, I feel like people just hold on to stuff that can just be, like, you can just let it go. And, you know, like, try to keep that perspective of, like, right now, when you look back on it in, like, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, like, how important is this going to be? Especially with, like, motherhood in the business. It's like, okay, I can respond to these emails. I can do, like, some of this admin stuff, but my kids are playing in the other room, and like, what am I gonna like feel like I regret or like missed out on? It's not gonna be the work stuff. It's gonna be like that time with them, or like especially with teenagers, like that test you failed. Like it's not gonna matter. You won't remember that test in like 5 years. Like it keeps going. So try not to take it too seriously.
What are your closing thoughts, or if you have any questions for me?
I do like questions. What's been the most surprising part of your journey?
Everything. I think just the self-growth that I've had. When we first met, I was just riddled with insecurity, feeling like I could never truly belong. I would say like it felt like I never really belonged at a table, where in reality I realized that I could just build one. And now that I'm out of the military, now that I'm like later in life, being able to build a table to where people can sit at freely, they can come and go as they please. But probably that is that there's everybody has a lot of power if they're willing to believe in it. Yeah.
Very good.
Well, with that being said, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It means a lot. And hopefully we can have you back again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.